The following is produced by 5 Star Productions USA, which is solely responsible for its editorial content and is sponsored in part by a grant from Paul Mitchell Salon Hair Care.
Have you ever visited the state of Ohio? It's a big place, but every year deforestation destroys that many acres of tropical rainforest. Over 27 million acres. Those trees would have helped us eliminate nearly 30% of the carbon dioxide. Well, now, we have to find another way. If the devastation continues, only 20% of these forests will still be standing in the year 2000. That ought to take your breath away. Hi, I'm Ed Begley Jr., and this is Today's Environment, where we look closely at the problems in our ecosystem and what's being done about them. This used to be state-of-the-art in computing. Now it seems a new breed of faster and better computers comes along before we get ours out of the box. But what about all the obsolete hardware? Will it put our planet on the road to nowhere? Watch this.
Get ready for this. One of the most important advancements in new computers may be old computers. It sounds strange, but it's true. Recycled plastic, metal, and components from outdated hardware now regularly find their way back into the world of high technology in more advanced equipment. In the quest for green machines, environmentally sensitive computer manufacturers strive to recycle and reuse discarded component materials. With processing technology advancing at light speed, the amazing hardware of yesterday can become virtual computing dinosaurs by tomorrow. About 79 million PCs will be retired by 1996. By the year 2005, more computers could be in landfills than on our desks. But now, old computers no longer have a one-way ticket from the desktop to the dumpster. Some companies like GHA Plastics specialize in supplying today's computer manufacturers with plastic recycled from outdated processors and peripherals. But providing recycled engineering thermoplastics poses different challenges than recycling plastic from curbside collections. The source of the incoming plastic must be known so that it can be identified and blended with similar resins. Miles, a prime resin producer, helps foster this plastic recycling by lending a hand in identification, testing, and troubleshooting. Computer manufacturers must supply detailed performance and part specifications that indicate the proper resin blend. Sometimes these specs require that prime resins from Miles get added to the recycled resins. GHA researchers constantly conduct online tests as their recycled product progresses.
The results speak for themselves. The end user will never be able to tell the difference between the parts that contain recycled material and the parts that don't.
Keeping the batches pure helps extend the recyclability of these resins. Before losing performance characteristics, one piece of this engineering thermoplastic may be reprocessed as many as 10 times. When you consider that major computer manufacturers such as Hewlett-Packard extract over 900,000 pounds of metal and plastic from old machines every month, the importance of this recycling becomes very apparent. Most major manufacturers even have take-back programs in place for large corporate users. As environmental stewardship continues to grow throughout the computer manufacturing industry, the trend to examine the life cycle of equipment from development to disposal may bring us a new generation of highly advanced, environmentally friendly machines. And it doesn't take a computer to calculate the benefits if we can maintain our processors at the state of the art without jeopardizing the state of the planet.
You might not think of your mailbox as a buzzsaw, but every household in America gets about 1.5 trees of junk mail every year. Tell them to cross your name off those mailing lists and get involved with today's environment today.
Care for a drink? You know, water makes up over 65% of your entire body. That means I've probably got about this much water in me right now, and so do you, which makes it very important that what's in our water is what also should be in us. Here's an example.
Clean water. It's the source of life. But when water flows through the earth, it dissolves minerals in the soil and carries them down to the water table. Significant amounts of calcium and magnesium can be found in the water that reaches 85% of U.S. households. Over time, this hard water can clog plumbing and shorten the life of appliances. The minerals also cut the effectiveness of household cleaners and can leave a soapy residue on your skin after a shower. To combat hard water, over 8 million households use water softeners. These devices soften or remove the minerals from the water. Soft water rinses soaps better, improves their effectiveness, and doesn't hurt pipes or appliances. When hard water flows through a softener, it undergoes an ion exchange with a regenerant chemical, such as potassium or sodium. This removes the hardness minerals and puts some of the regenerant chemical into the water. Currently, sodium chloride crystals, which is similar to common table salt, provide the regenerant in the vast majority of water softeners. This adds sodium and associated high blood pressure risks right into the drinking water. These households also add harmful sodium to their environment in their wastewater. An environmentally sensitive solution to softer water may be softening with potassium chloride instead. One supplier of potassium chloride, Kalium Chemicals, a division of the Vigoro Corporation, extols the major benefit of using potassium-based crystals. The ion exchange process adds potassium to the household water. The nutrient potassium is a vital part of a proper diet, and therefore simply drinking water can provide some of the daily recommended intake. Even the household wastewater becomes better for the environment, since potassium is an essential nutrient for plant and vegetable growth. Making water healthier for yourself and nature takes very little effort. Instead of sodium chloride, simply use nature's own. It works in all softeners. Mineral-rich water can be softened for household use while minimizing risks to health or the environment. And it just may be that potassium provides an easy solution to hard water. In a moment, on Today's Environment, another clean air technology success story, and organic food waste converts to animal feed. Next.
When one event triggers another, which triggers another and so on, it's called a chain reaction. Often the solution to one problem can create another challenge. This next story features some important links in a chain of solutions.
In the war to keep our air clean, technology's going right to the wall. Literally. The synthetic gypsum in this wallboard originates in the gas scrubbers designed for flue gas desulfurization. Some power plants responded immediately to the Clean Air Act of 1990. The Northern Indiana Public Service Corporation, or NIPSCO Industries, owns and operates the first utility to comply. 2.5 years before the mandated deadline, they installed flue gas scrubbers with clean coal funding from the U.S. Department of Energy. The scrubber desulfurizes emissions by removing the sulfur dioxide released by their coal-fired power generation. While this reduced sulfur dioxide emissions by more than 90%, the resulting inert byproduct created a disposal challenge. Each year, the plant generates over 140,000 tons of this byproduct. Landfills might appear to be the only place for disposal, but the massive quantities of this byproduct would soon help fill them to capacity. Fortunately, industry researchers discovered a better use for the material. The inert compound could be processed into synthetic gypsum. Gypsum represents a major component in most wallboard, and one manufacturer, United States Gypsum Company, joined forces with their local utility to take advantage of this win-win opportunity. While the NIPSCO power plant worked to produce cleaner air, the wallboard producer put the byproduct to good use. For the past 20 years, synthetic gypsum has provided them with a reliable substitute for the natural gypsum rock. Many byproducts of industrial processes can combine to make this substance, and now that includes the byproduct from the scrubbed emissions of coal-fired plants. U.S. gypsum uses more than 400,000 tons of synthetic gypsum annually, while the entire industry consumes over 8 million tons of the natural raw material. That points to an enormous opportunity to increase the use of the synthetic gypsum and reduce the amount going into landfills. Every day, more and more of the synthetic gypsum from flue gas desulfurization and gas scrubbers piles up. And as more stringent clean air regulations take effect, that supply will only increase. Turning these emissions that could foul our air into materials that provide a shelter takes recycling to a more advanced level. When you consider this wallboard manufacturer also recycles over 500,000 tons of waste paper annually to produce these panels, it gives bare walls a whole new perspective. Manufacturing construction materials from usable byproducts destined for landfills helps preserve the land and raw materials on this planet for future generations. The fallout from the Clean Air War could create a landfill nightmare, but now with some innovative recycling, it might just be the walls to the house of your dreams.
Your mailbox might just as well be a trash can. Americans get over 4 million tons of junk mail every year. Even if you don't read it, recycle it and get involved with today's environment today.
Ever hear the saying, you are what you eat? Good nutrition fuels a healthy body. But how does producing the food we eat affect the health of the planet? This next segment examines one way they're working to keep us fed without devouring the environment.
You may think this kitchen's got it backwards. What comes in could be considered garbage by some, but what goes out is pure wholesome nutrition. For animals, that is.
The science of converting organic discards from the food production industry into nutritious animal feed plays a key role in today's production of meat, milk, and eggs.
And annually eliminates as much as 45 million tons of organic waste from winding up in overflowing landfills. Byproducts are scraps of human food processing that are not useful to consumers from the meat, vegetable, brewing, and distilling industries, such as corn cobs, soybean, and wheat hulls, often contain a very high vitamin and nutrient level. Each year, the amount of unsellable byproducts from these sources could cover the land area of the nation's capital, with more than 17 inches of organic waste. But recycling this waste by reprocessing it into animal feed can harness that nutritional value and keep the cost of feeding livestock down. According to the American Feed Industry Association, animal feed accounts for over 70% of the cost of producing meat, milk, and eggs. Keeping nutrition high and costs low pose an important challenge to the nutritional scientists who specialize in creating animal feed. Their success or failure can have a direct impact on food prices at the supermarket. When you consider that U.S. producers of meat, milk, and eggs consume over 110 million tons of formula feed per year, using fresh raw material foodstuffs to satisfy this demand could increase food prices dramatically and reduce the amount of humans worldwide that are fed by U.S. agricultural output. Reprocessing waste byproducts makes sense and can be perfectly safe and healthy. State and federal agencies constantly monitor the safety of animal feed and the health of the livestock. American Feed Industry Association sources point out that on a purely nutritional basis, most animals eat better than humans. And the researchers continuously strive to improve the nutritional efficiency of the feed they formulate. Currently, every pound of poultry raised consumes an average of 2 pounds of feed. Producing a dozen eggs takes an average of 4 pounds of feed. And for every pound of beef raised, a producer goes through nearly 8 pounds of feed and forage. Plus, using scraps and byproducts from the food industry eliminates enormous amounts of waste from landfills and also helps create the massive tonnage of animal feed that's necessary to produce safe and nutritious meat, milk, and eggs.
On a planet that's hungry for improvement, a process to create good, safe feed that helps keep the environment healthy and our food supply abundant and economical, well, it sounds like a pretty good idea.
When we come back, old newspapers and soybeans combine to help save trees, and a new weapon to fight noise pollution coming up next on Today's Environment.
A famous inventor once defined genius as 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. Great ideas don't always come easily, but we need them desperately. And this next segment highlights one idea that may be truly inspired.
Yesterday's newspaper. It used to be worthless, but today, those dated pages are making headlines, thanks to a generous portion of fresh soybeans. Believe it or not, this unlikely combination forms the foundation of a revolutionary new building material called Environ Biocomposite. It looks like granite, but it works like wood. You can drill it, you can saw it, and you can sand it. This panel might work well in many applications previously reserved for stone or fine hardwood. Just 55 pounds of old newspapers chopped up and combined with a resin made of flour from 1 bushel of soybeans makes about 22 board feet of this biocomposite panel. In a patent-pending process, the materials fuse to a hardness 2.5 times that of oak. This tabletop made from Environ from Phoenix Biocomposites displays just one application for this environmentally friendly building material. Wall coverings, furniture, picture frames, and award presentations could be other likely uses for this biocomposite with the look of granite at only a fraction of the weight. Recycled newspapers, now in dramatic oversupply at recycling stations, represent a nearly inexhaustible resource that may otherwise stifle acres of landfills. Soybeans, a very sustainable resource, create an important non-food application for agricultural interests. At full production, the current capacity of this manufacturing process could eliminate 10 million pounds of old newspapers destined for landfill sites and consume 280,000 bushels of soybeans. Researchers at Phoenix Biocomposites in St. Peter, Minnesota, take pride in the fact that this totally new building material can completely avoid sacrificing any trees or forests and can be processed using advanced water-based technology. They maintain high hopes for manufacturers, builders, architects, and designers to adopt the material easily since it only requires normal woodworking equipment for crafting. Great inspiration combined old newspapers and soybeans into a formula that may spawn some of the most revolutionary materials in the last 2 decades. These planet-friendly biocomposites could prove to be far more important than merely wood substitutes. They may be the building blocks for a better tomorrow.
The sounds of the world at work are often a far cry from a soothing symphony. Airplanes, trucks, construction often form an orchestra whose racket can invade our ears with deafening results. Noise makes up a very serious form of pollution, and this may be one way to fight it.
Noise pollution. The constant onslaught of decibels so numerous they make our eardrums pound beyond their endurance. Heavy machinery, construction, and industry can generate a roaring thunder that assaults our sense of hearing and may even impair it.
But some researchers actively fight the war on noise pollution and have developed a weapon that may put a new spin on the traditional muffler.
This cowl spiral silencer from the Bud Company can baffle engine noise by channeling exhaust gases through a spiral passage. It fits directly into the exhaust system and can be adapted to quiet most engines, compressors, generators, and even marine vessels. Sound waves travel in a straight line and faster than exhaust gases. By routing the engine exhaust into a spiral channel partially lined with steel wool, the sound waves can be forced into the smooth walls and reflected back to the source. The steel wool helps dissipate energy, which makes up higher frequency sound waves. This design can reduce engine exhaust noise by about 22 to 25 decibels or more. States like Hawaii, Washington, and California all carry regulations which limit exterior noise levels on some diesel engine-powered equipment to 80 decibels at 50 feet. That's roughly the sound level of a busy office. A standard truck muffler eliminates about 15 decibels from a semi's thunder. Bud Company sources claim that the sound reduction achieved by some larger spiral designs of their silencer can reach 30 to 35 decibels. They point to the outward spiral passages as the elements that allow greater sound reduction in a more compact unit. This compact size enables the silencer to adapt to exhaust systems in tight spaces. A normal muffler channels exhaust gases through a series of chambers and baffles. The longer the unit, the greater the sound reduction. Sensitivity to noise, and specifically racket caused by the engines on heavy equipment, continues to grow across the nation. But companies cannot afford to simply stop working. Therefore, they must find better ways to control the roar of their efforts. Every day, researchers continue their quest to create and improve devices that may help reduce noise. It no longer remains an overlooked form of pollution. This new design for silencing engine noise may be a very important step to making positive strides in squelching the potentially harmful sounds of progress.
If you think industry is the only source of hazardous waste, you better think again. Before we point any fingers, we better look in the mirror. Paint, oil, mothballs, oven and toilet bowl cleaners, high phosphate detergents, and many other household chemicals create an ocean of liquid hazardous waste every year. Read your labels, substitute with safer products, or dispose of toxic ones more carefully. I hope this show gave you some good ideas. Join us next time as we explore more environmental solutions on Today's Environment.
To purchase a complete written transcript or a videotape copy of this or any edition of Today's Environment, write to this address or call 1-800-877-7769.
The preceding program was sponsored in part by a grant from Paul Mitchell Salon Hair Care. This has been a presentation of 5 Star Productions USA.